Hi, my name's Chris. I'm based out of Tempe, Arizona. I'm primarily an oil painter, but I also work with photography and video. The inspiration for this particular body of work was just something to do during COVID quarantine. Like I had been teaching and then I lost a couple of classes, ended up teaching online eventually, but just kind of lived out of my living room for about 2 years almost. The painting started just as something for me to do, to kind of my sanity almost, in a way, you know. At the beginning, I didn't intend to show them to anyone. They were just kind of, for me, something to keep me busy when I wasn't working, because you know, the isolation was kind of getting to me. But I ended up showing them to a couple of friends on social media. People had a really strong reaction to them, so I decided to do a whole series just based on kind of, it started out just being about my activities during it, and then I started to get a little bit more like allegorical with them. You know? I'm not 100% sure where the ideas come from always. It usually, a lot of times it'll be inspired by some other piece of art, or like a film or a piece of music or something that'll spark sort of an idea, and then, you know, if I keep it in the back of my head, it kind of, you know, develops on its own in my subconscious, and then I eventually just feel really compelled to make something out of it. This is mostly related to painting. And then once I start working, further ideas come. You know what I mean? I'll start one painting, it'll start an idea for another painting, which will start an idea for another one. And then I'm trying to work more in series now. I usually would get tired after like one painting, but now I'm kind of trying to work in like half a dozen or so before I move on to the next thing. I think because I've done a lot of figurative work over the years, and very rarely did I do anything about myself. So I figured, since I was spending so much time just with myself, that I would decide to see what that looked like. You know, and I tried to be as open and vulnerable and honest about what I was doing and how I felt. And people, you know, I had a stronger response to those self-portraits than to anything I've done for quite some time. So yeah, I guess it was just, I know myself better than anybody else, you know, so I felt like I could starting there, I could be really honest with the work. The very first one that I did in this series, I had just gotten off of a Zoom meeting, and I'd seen myself on the screen. So I set up a situation where I had my phone, and my phone was not recording, but playing me live onto the TV screen in front of me. So I was doing kind of like a live self-portrait, like what you would do in a mirror, but with the technological interface letting me see myself from a different angle, because most of the time when people do self-portraits from life, it's from a mirror and you're kind of staring at yourself directly. But I took advantage of the technology to kind of see what it would look like, you know, to do a live painting of myself where I wasn't looking directly at myself, kind of like how somebody else would see me at the time. The other paintings after that weren't quite so ambitious, but I tried to keep the same sort of feeling, but most of those were photos that I put my phone on a little tripod, and then you know, for example, the one with the animals where they're like sitting on me, I had to like put a timer on the phone and like jump over my dog and put my cat on my lap on my chest, and then I had to take like 10 or 12 photos for that to work, but yeah, it finally worked out. It looked natural. Yeah. Most of them were like that. I think I'd like to do that some more in the future too, because I do like painting from life, and it's really the only way to get something different that's you're not looking directly into the viewer's face. You know? Most of them were just what I was doing most of the time, unfortunately. Those were kind of like snapshots of most of what my life was like. I'm married, but my wife, she quickly went back to work, so I just spent, most of 2 years just kind of sitting in the house by myself, my 2 pets, and then, ones like where I'm sitting in the mirror, I had a lot of time for self-reflection there, sitting alone by yourself like that. I had a lot of, revelations about my past, my family history, like, I don't know, spending that much time at yourself, you kind of have to look at yourself in an unflinching sort of way after a while. You're forced to. Your illusions are kind of shattered after a while. And I just wanted to record that process in painting, for better or worse. Because I think that kind of, everybody goes through that at some point in their life. And I think that's why these have been more popular than some of my most recent. Well, before this, I was doing very political stuff. Like I would go out to protests and I'd be right there with the people getting, like trampled and tear gassed and stuff like that. And then I would make paintings and videos and stuff based on my experience there. But once 2020 happened, that started to feel like exploitive a little bit. Like I was trying to raise awareness at the time, but then once everybody's awareness was raised, I was thinking like, okay, what am I going to do now? I can't do the same thing because it's like taking advantage of somebody's struggle that's not mine. So I just decided to go really deep inward instead of, expressing my sort of anger with what was going on in the outside world. I think it helped me out a lot. It was very, I don't know specifically how, I just know that once I started doing it, I felt a lot better, and I was compelled to do more and more, and it gave me something to do other than just, watch TV 8-9 hours a day. It got really bad too when, about a year into it, the 2 animals that my cat and my dog, they both died within 2 months of each other, just from natural causes. So then I was completely alone, and then I started painting even more, like just to give myself something to do. When I was, to give myself something to do. I hope that they can see some part of themselves in it, or if not, at least like empathize. I wanted it to be relatable. I wanted it to be, now that we're kind of coming out of the pandemic, I don't know if it'll have the same sort of impact, but it became more than the quarantine after a while. So it just started to be about personal reflection. And so I'm hoping that people can relate in that way, that they'll see something of themselves in it. Make some kind of an emotional connection. That's what I really want the most, The series of newer paintings that I did, the 3 women are actually colleagues of mine. They were in my graduate cohort, and they're just kind of becoming local art bosses in Tempe, and I'm super proud of them. They're really talented artists as well. I wasn't sure exactly what those paintings were about at first, just that I was really compelled to do them. but now I'm starting to think of them as kind of like the way Whistler thought about his paintings, and then some of the pre-Raphaelites, how they would do sort of these female figures that were allegories for either Greek or Roman gods, or just concepts in general, like allegories of painting and things like that. I'm not sure what the allegories would be for these, but the difference being, when I set up those scenarios that I photographed that I turned into paintings, I was relying on the creativity of the person. They're almost like collaborations a little bit. I said, like, dress how you want, and then we'll go to a location that you think matches it, and then we'll shoot a bunch of stuff until we get something interesting. And so that's what I think. I started to think of them now as kind of like allegories for a philosophy or a religion that doesn't exist yet, but that has something to do with women and their empowerment. And, all of my mentors throughout my artistic career, save like one or two, have all been women. I was raised by a house full of women. My father wasn't around much, so they're kind of an homage to that in a way too. I've been really lucky to have such positive female role models my whole life, and I wanted to express something about that. I've got at least 2 more in mind that I'm going to do for that series. Maybe, hopefully those will be coming. Honestly, I need to take a break from painting because I've been like cramming for about 5 months. But once I do have already ideas sitting in my head for what I want to do next, who I want to work with. So I'll at least do just as many, at least 3 more of those, possibly more. I'll probably do more of the self-portraits as well. I'd really like to do, because they're so small, I can do them relatively quickly. I'd like to do like maybe 20 or 30 of them at a time. Yeah.